Hey PC World fans, Adam here with Gordon. And Gordon, I hear there is a new 10th gen CPU that just came out. We just tested it a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, 10th gen Ice Lake, 10
Yeah,
nanometer,
it's
all
here.
kinds of goodness.
Perfect.
Bam! This morning, Intel release officially 10th gen Comet Lake CPUs.
Wait, we literally just checked
not
out
the same thing.
different
10
10th gen.
nanometer. This is 14 nanometer. Cynical people would say it's just Whiskey Lake plus 14 plus. Probably a little mean because there is a significant difference with Comet Lake. That makes it probably worth it. I would argue, you could argue it's worth it.
Well, I'm going to need you to explain all this to me because this is one giant headache right now.
Yeah, right now, I know. And so rather than just sort of make fun of Intel's names and do the face palming, Captain Picard, all that stuff, we're going to offer you some practical advice because you don't care about all that noise. You just want to buy a CPU with 10th gen CPU. You want to know which one to buy. But damn, look at this. This list has 19 CPUs to pick from between Ice Lake and Comet Lake. These are now on the market or coming on the market very soon. We got everything from 10 nanometer to 14 nanometer, 2 cores to 6 cores, 64 EUs, graphics power, to 24 high power, low power, high clocks, low clocks. Yeah, real headache.
Yeah, and those numbers kind of run the gamut, so...
Yes, 4 digits, Ice Lake, 5 digits, Comet Lake. Forget it. Forget all that noise. You just want practical stuff. This is going to be very useful here. I sat down. I looked at all 19 CPUs based on the testing we've already done on Ice Lake, and based on testing we've done on Whiskey Lake U. Basically, very similar CPU. Pretty much, some people would say the same, but with more cores. Looking at the clock speeds, I can now tell you which CPU to buy.
Oh,
bam! Yes. Look at this chart, color coded. On the left, first column, we get all of the CPUs. Each different model you're gonna find in all the new laptops coming out. 90 new laptops and tablets and devices, we're told.
Wow.
It's a lot. So the first one is future-proof new instructions. The best example of this is AVX 512 support. It is advanced math features. That's probably all you want to know in the CPU. It's only in Ice Lake. It's not in Comet Lake. So things like deep learning, AI, that kind of fancy stuff. Intel has demonstrated a couple of different photo applications that use this to do, face recognition, all kinds of goodness, AI, DL stuff. Realistically, it's going to take a long time for that stuff to work its way into all the applications that you use. You're not going to immediately use this in Office, for example. So that's why I'm calling it future-proof. So if you are like, I'm worried there's going to be a new feature in a program I use and it's not going to support it, you're going to want a CPU with the new instructions. AVX 512.
Got it.
Next one is quick sync video performance. So if you do video editing like you do, there's this cool feature in Intel CPUs with integrated graphics that makes it a lot faster. It's dedicated circuits to transcode, to convert video. It's actually really good on most Intel CPUs, but 10 nanometer Ice Lake is going to be faster because it has the newer QuickSync engine. Significantly faster at doing, say, HEVC, H.265, these new advanced codecs. So if you're really looking at doing video encoding, video transcoding, using next generation codecs, you're going to want the one with the green here. Again, previous CPUs and Comet Lake are still good, but Ice Lake is going to be faster on these newer things.
But the next one you also mentioned, video editing. Explain that one a little bit.
So the next thing is multi-core performance. We're basically saying, okay, which of these CPUs is going to be best for multi-core performance? Video editing is what most people can relate to because video editors do actually use most of the cores if you throw it at them. It can also be used with 3D modeling. Probably unlikely to be doing on a small laptop, but you might actually do it. There's also some applications, some very specialized photo applications that will use all those cores. Basically, if you need a CPU with more cores for your applications, you want the one that's going to be the greenest here. The one that is the greenest is Comet Lake. 14 nanometer, older process, but 6 cores. Now, this is the reason why all of the hate over not calling these shouldn't be called 10th gen is not true, because that 6-core Comet Lake is a big step forward. Think of it this way, 3 years ago, you only had 2 cores in a laptop this small. Then you went up to 4 cores. Now we're getting up to 6 cores in a 2.5 to 3 pound laptop. Significant improvement for people who need more cores. After that, 6 core. If the next thing, if you're like, well, I don't do a lot of it, but I do a little bit more, you could look for, say, the quad cores. So basically, all the quad cores get very good.
Okay.
From there, it goes to dual cores. Some of the lower clock CPUs. One thing I do want to point out, big difference here, is the Comet Lake low power Y-class CPUs actually now get quad cores. So I'm going to give them a good rating. Probably not good. It's not going to push as hard as a higher power using CPU, but you still get more cores. Still going to be good overall. Next category, single core performance for office work, office browsing, Chrome, also Photoshop. A lot of photo editing programs, specifically Adobe's Photoshop, generally don't use a lot of CPU cores.
Yeah.
So for these things, you really want very high clock speeds or very efficient cores. So we go through, we looked at all those. Again, Comet Lake, I'm going to rate higher than Ice Lake because the 6-core and the 4-core, quad-core Comet Lake can hit higher clock speeds, 4.9 gigahertz. And that quad-core Comet Lake, 4.7 gigahertz on that 6-core CPU. In general, having tested Whiskey Lake and testing Ice Lake already, I'm going to say these are probably going to outstep Ice Lake a little bit, a decent amount. That you're probably going to be interested in those, but also very good. Ice Lake single-core performance is actually really good considering it's a lower clock speed, but because the cores are more efficient, those higher power Ice Lake CPUs are probably going to do pretty good at single-core loads. Probably decent. Not going to be as fast as that Comet Lake with more cores or higher and higher clocks, but still very good.
Well, can I give you a question that was kind of as I was looking at the chart here, I have a question that's specific to my needs. When you're talking about workloads like video editing or photo editing, I think I gravitate towards this Comet Lake 10710U. But the QuickSync performance is it's just barely good.
No, it's better. It's going to be better if you do HEVC, if you're going to be doing, H.2, that stuff, it's going to be better with Ice Lake. But it's still really good in those other parts. Yeah, that is a weakness. One thing I sort of think is sort of the fantasy combo for that 6-core CPU is you put that into a laptop with a discrete GPU. So the graphics performance in that not older, but in Comet Lake, it's not going to be fantastic. It's not going to be stellar. So if you combine that with discrete graphics, with that 6-core, could be, and you're getting into still a very light laptop, could actually be the fantasy laptop people want.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
I suggested to Dell XPS 14. Take that 6-core, MX250. That's an XPS 14, folks. 14-inch. Yeah.
Not a bad size. Not a bad size. All right, what's the next graph that you have here?
Next one is gaming and graphics performance. Also some compute as well if you do that. But here is where Ice Lake really has a big advantage. Ice Lake has the newest graphics cores, the Gen 11 graphics. It's on par with an MX150 10 watt, a little bit faster. Not quite as good as a 25 watt MX150 GeForce part, but still pretty good, right? So you're looking at actually, for the first time ever, decent integrated graphics performance in the new Ice Lake parts with the G7. G7 means good, G4 a little less, G1 not that great. And you can see as we look at, if you're looking at that gaming column, those Ice Lake laptops, we go from best to good to fair because you just get fewer EUs, it just gets less in performance.
And I see you put adequate instead of bad, right?
So I don't want to say bad. I don't want to say bad. I don't want to put something in red. Good. It's not critical. I say good, but it's adequate. Again, a lot of people play graphics on the current UHD 620, 630 graphics. The performance of Comet Lake, Comet Lake is going to be very similar to that. It works. It's not great. It's adequate.
Okay.
But you know what? If it works for you, it's good. But I'm going to tell you, if you care about graphics and gaming performance, again, look to the green. Those Ice Lake G7 parts are the way to go. And what interesting to me is the low power Y parts. Now they use less power. They still get the full 64 EUs, the G7 graphics, but it's going to be less power. I'm going to say it's probably going to be decent. Not going to be as good as a higher wattage Ice Lake part, but it's probably going to be okay. But I don't know about there. That's a little bit of a guess there. But I don't think Intel's going to put a G7 on there unless it can at least hit reasonable graphics performance.
Okay. And then a very important one, the last one is battery life.
Yeah, so there, of all these, that's going to be the biggest variable because it's going to depend on the laptop, the screen in the laptop, the motherboard in the laptop, the type of RAM, the amount of RAM, the SSD, and how big of a battery they put in there. But in general, you're going to get the best battery performance. If you care about battery performance, you're going to see it in those Y parts. On the Y for Comet Lake, which is a traditional Core M, is what they used to call them, they're Y parts. And then Intel has these lower power Ice Lake parts. TBD on how well they're going to do on battery life. On paper, they don't look as good, but I don't think that's really going to end up being true. I think those are going to be sleepers. I think those low power Ice Lake parts are going to be really good performers for what they are because they are 10 nanometer. It's possible they may outperform the other ones, even though they on paper don't go to lower power. But the green goes to the low power 10 nanometer and the 14 nanometer Comet Lake because they're just tuned to use less power. They can hold higher clocks at less power. They're going to go into laptops that are built for longer runtime. So.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And again, I'm not passing judgment on Comet Lake and Ice Lake normal parts, those 15 watt parts, because I think those battery life we've seen out of Whiskey Lake has been pretty awesome. So I think it's still going to be very good, but obviously the best battery life is going to come out of the low power parts. And the big question mark is that 6-core Comet Lake part. Mm-hmm. How is the battery life going to be on it? I think depending on what you're doing, it's probably going to be excellent because for the most part, it's just idling. But if you're going to use all 6 cores, it's probably going to chew through that battery a lot faster than those other CPUs.
Okay, and then like you said, with all these, it's going to really come down to each manufacturer's tuning of the cooling and the parts and the screen and all that stuff in it. So we should definitely come back, once we start getting these laptops in and do fuller testing and kind of see how the chart fleshes itself out. Right,
but I do think this again is a performance forecast. I'm pretty comfortable with how this is going to land. And if you got to go buy something now, I think you go through, you pick the green that is important to you and the column that's important to you, and go with it.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, stay tuned for further testing in this new 10th gen future that Intel has thrust upon us. And thanks for putting this handy chart together. I really appreciate it, Gordon.
Okay, no problem.
And we will see you later.